Hello, everybody. This is a fucking raid. We're gonna leave and I'll pump one into it. No, just playing. We're gonna talk about the OCD project, which is a old reality show slash documentary series about uh, basically treating OCD in a house full of people with OCD. And here today with me, the obsessive centrist is Andrew OCD Mindgasm. I was really excited to invite him on this quest because he would have some insider knowledge about this disease. He probably has
I
some
have
really
OCD.
keen insights about about the stuff we're going to talk about today. So, the OCD project. I guess you would want to call it a reality show, kind of along the lines of Hoarders, like the production company that made Hoarders and Intervention and all those other shows based off of psychology. Like I think even 600 Pound Life, like all those weird shows that are based off of people with mental issues. Um, it's kind of one of those shows, but in this show they actually
Is the
try. Go ahead.
is the something like 600 pound life, is that would the mental issue around that because people have food addictions?
Yeah, like people who get that big definitely have mental problems, and
Yeah.
they treat it as like a mental disorder. Like I believe all those eating disorders are actually like mental disorders. They're all based off of some type of mental issue.
Yeah, like the kind of like the opposite of something like bulimia or anorexia. I've definitely known some people. No, never known anyone that's been 4 or 600 pounds, but I've known people in my life who it seems like they have an addiction to food and they just eat to try to escape their lives in the same way that some people do with drugs. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
there apparently the obesity has become such an epidemic that uh when my mom was answering questions recently for like a follow-up about having her pacemaker surgery, I think it was, one of the standard questions was, are you over 400 pounds? Because oh yeah, it was for
Wow.
an MR, it was for some kind of scan, because if you're over 400 pounds they need to get like the bigger one that they use for animals in the zoo.
Oh crap!
Yeah.
They have to use a zoo animal MRI scan
Yeah,
on
yeah.
you.
So it's apparently common enough that that's a standard question now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, this show, the OCD Project, it aired in 2010. So it's quite old. It's not a show that went past one season. So there's only a single season of this show.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Eight episodes.
Yeah, it's only 8 episodes. So let's go ahead and talk about the first episode. So it is mentioned that it's supposed to be a 21-day treatment program, and basically, it's about the group therapy. There are a few doctors in the house. The main doctor is David Tolan. He's I guess, a psychologist of some sort or a psychiatrist. And we have 6 patients. So one of the first patients one of the first that are presented to us is Kristen. She's 28 and she has an excessive hand washing and cleanliness disorder. Another issue that she has is she does some type of foot rubbing ritual before she goes to bed. But I think out of all the people, hers is probably the worst. Seems to take up a lot of her time.
I think that
Mm.
that guy who they say at one point looks like Aaron Eckhart is even worse.
Yeah, he might be worse, but I think Aaron Eckhart, um, he doesn't seem to be staying up until like 2 in the morning performing rituals
Yeah,
like this
I
chick, you
guess
know?
I guess it's that maybe not that his OCD is more severe. It's that it's like it seems to be in combination with maybe Asperger's or some other condition like that, as the psychiatrist says in, I think, episode 4. So it's kind of like OCD in combination with other conditions that makes it more difficult to treat.
Yeah. So I know this girl Kristen, she wakes up the next morning and it shows her like starting to get ready, and she doesn't leave the house till like 3.5 hours later because
Yeah,
all
that
these
sounds like
rituals.
me.
3.5 hours. Really? Like you perform rituals
Yeah.
for that long?
Well, like if I get when I get up, it usually takes like 4 hours or more from the time I get up to the time I'm eating my breakfast.
But what are you doing in between then?
Like brushing my teeth, taking a shower, checking my phone 3 times or so, making food, pooping while reading, um, getting weed, and yeah, cuddling with my dog some, and listening to an audiobook and
Well, that
doing
sounds normal though. Like this girl is just washing herself and she's spending most of the time in the bathroom like throughout this time because they show like a
right,
time
right.
lapse of her, and literally in every single time lapse she's like either washing her hands, like doing her hair, or doing some other preparation in the
Yeah, yeah.
bathroom.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think I mentioned before when we were talking, that I like that it explores that people have different types of OCD and different obsessions. Because one of the stereotypical type of obsessions that people have about people with OCD is that they're obsessed with cleanliness and they're germaphobes or something like that. And I've never had that as a thing for me, which is part of why I had no idea that I had OCD for years, because I never had any obsession with cleanliness or was a germaphobe or anything like that.
Mhm. So she drives and she arrives at the house. She's asked to fill out the form, her admittance form or whatever it is. And you see, like, the first thing she does is she gets some hand sanitizer and starts, like, sanitizing her hands. So we can talk about the next patient, Arini. She's 25. She has a couple different things going on with her. One of them is while driving, she has this fear of hitting pedestrians,
Right.
and this will often cause her to basically, when she's going on a route, to reroute herself and loop around blocks just to make sure she hadn't hit anybody. So it sounds like
Yeah.
a massive waste of gas and time.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's it. I won't get into it now in detail, of course, but that reminds me of how later on we basically find out that all of their obsessions seem to be centered around some kind of childhood trauma that they had, which is
right.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And when they first got into their one-on-ones, and he was
Hmm.
kind of questioning them about things, and a lot of them seem to have some type of trigger, like a traumatic event that triggered the behavior. So I think we have a little thing from Tonlin, who is the doctor, and he says that a lot of people, well, in her case, her OCD is a lot of people have an OCD that's concerned with doing something harmful to themselves or other. There
Right.
seems to be largely correct as well.
Hmm.
So the interesting thing is I didn't know how self-aware people were when they had OCD. It seems like they're completely self-aware. She's aware that her behavior seems crazy, and she's
Hmm.
also aware that what she's doing is ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, I like that they covered that too, that they know that what they're doing is irrational and makes no sense, but it feels like they have to do it. Like it reminds me of me too, like with some of my obsessions before. I've described having to let go of them as feeling like I have to chop off a limb or something like that.
Hmm. One of her other obsessions is that she has a fear of AIDS, so she also somewhat has a cleanliness
Right.
obsession as well. So she has kind of two things going on concurrently. Um, she also talks a little bit about herself. She says that she was like in law school, and she actually completed law school, and her obsessions have basically stopped her or impeded her from taking the bar exam.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be really fucking debilitating.
She also mentions that at the age of 17, her dad died. He was hit by a truck mirror. And she says that that's about when her OCD was triggered.
Yeah, that was interesting. That's one of the examples of how for her OCD onset came after childhood trauma.
Hmm. So there's a little vignette of her driving to the facility, and we obviously see she drives very slow. A driver behind her gets very frustrated and starts honking the horn. She pulls over to the side, and she's like feeling dizzy and lightheaded from the interaction. Let's see. For some reason I wrote a note that says Gary Go Open Arms commercial. There was like some weird commercial there that they decided to include in that. So
Oh
next thing
yeah.
is, do you know what that? Do you remember what that was?
I remember that there was a commercial. I didn't even remember that it was a car commercial.
Okay. Then we have Cody, 18-year-old kid. He has an extensive wake up ritual in which he kind of does like this rolling over thing, and he says that he does 3 sets of 18 rolls.
Yeah,
He
18 rolls to each side of the bed.
hmm
That's another interesting type of obsession that they get into in the show, which is that a lot of them are based on repetition or doing things a certain number of times.
Yeah,
I've
he has to do things
yeah,
even number of times.
yeah, I've had that sort of thing before too. Like I think I told you before, I used to, when I go to the bathroom, make sure the door is locked 5 times. But I made a lot more
Oh, an
progress with
odd
that one.
time.
Yeah,
So you had an odd one, so 5 times.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Which is different from the even. This because this guy is totally obsessed with symmetry and evenness.
yeah. I get that. I get that sometimes too. Like whenever I don't even think about this really, but whenever I'm moving around and I stand somewhere, I like obsess about the way that I'm standing, so I stand evenly because I'm worried about muscle imbalances or something like that.
Oh, like one of your muscles, you think one of your muscles is going to grow stronger than the others and then have to be bigger or smaller than the others.
Yeah. That's also why I'm deliberately ambidextrous with the way I do some things. Like I'll drink my coffee with my right hand, for example, and then I drink my water with my left hand.
So you do that on purpose.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a symmetry type of thing going on.
Yeah. Yeah, see,
One
though,
of the
like
things I
all of these
noticed.
little, there are all these little things in my life that I don't even realize are obsessions. Like it just feels normal to me.
You use two different bathrooms in different.
Yeah, yeah. Also when I take a shit, if I take a shit twice a day or 3 times a day, I alternate which bathroom I go to every time, even if I really have to go and I almost risk shitting myself.
You have to. So, what is the rationale for going to alternating? Like, what are you trying? Why are you trying to keep that particular thing even?
I don't know. It's just kind of like another evenness thing, I guess. Like I went there, so I must go to the other place next time.
But what if like one shit is much bigger than the other? Like, does that bother
No, no, that doesn't bother me. They're usually not the same size.
you? So going back to Cody, he kind of touches his nose a lot. Um, and yeah, he's got some stuff going on with him. He has these
Yeah.
rituals where he's touching his hair, his nose. It's all straightening things on his body.
Yeah, but when he was talking about how he had to start getting homeschooled because OCD was so debilitating, and now before he goes onto the computer to do his schoolwork every day, he has to touch his nose a certain number of times. And then he also has that obsession where he's worried that if he starts to look too much like someone or dress too much like someone, then he'll become like that person, as we see later on when they go to Skid Row.
Right. So we do get introduced to Liz. She is a former OCD patient. She also seems to help around and assist the current OCD patients. And I believe she's supposed to be kind of like the testament to how well this particular program works because she went through it.
Oh, I forgot that she
And
was a former OCD patient.
yeah, but yeah, she helps out, especially when um, they're having trouble with their therapies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because the reason we get to see her is because Kristen finds out that they all have a shared bathroom, and she completely freaks out about that. And
One
immediately,
bathroom for everyone in the house, which is how many patients is it? 5 or 6?
well, there's 6 living in the house. I don't believe that. I don't know if there's any additional people besides the 6.
Yeah, I don't know whether the psychiatrist or other staff are living there or not.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm not sure. I know at least 6 people live at this facility. I'm guessing more because it didn't really seem like a residence. It was like a residence plus an office. It wasn't like a house. It looks like it was definitely designed to be some type of medical type of facility.
Yeah, yeah.
So after finding out that there's a shared bathroom, she starts doing her cleansing rituals. So next person we meet is Kevin. He's 35, aka Aaron Eckhart.
Yeah.
So his obsession is pretty strange. He believes that his thoughts can harm people.
Mm-hmm.
And you also see that he may also have other psychiatric issues as well.
Yeah, like he seems really socially awkward, as if he has Asperger's or is on the autism spectrum or something similar.
Yeah, he says he personally suffers from LML, which is lunacy made logical.
Yeah, that's a good way of describing it.
Yeah, because he's always trying to scientifically like justify his weird obsessions.
Mm-hmm.
He taught math at a community college. When it showed his home life, it appears he sleeps inside a closet or something.
Oh, yeah, that because he couldn't be a math teacher anymore because his OCD was too debilitating, so he had to get a really small place.
Right. So he, I don't know, he's just a very strange person, probably the strangest of the bunch.
Yeah, I would say so.
So he arrives on the compound and he has trouble opening the front door, and he suspects that he's being trolled or something like that.
Yeah, he gets those weird conspiratorial thoughts sometimes too, because there's something wrong with the front door, like it catches before you can open it entirely or something.
Mm-hmm. So the next guy is Jerry. He looks like a big old biker dude. I think he's like 45, if I'm not mistaken. His biggest fear is harming someone. And we do get a little interlude by Olin, and he says that he suffers from thought action fusion. And that means that his thoughts are as bad as actions.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things he has trouble with is signing contracts and handing money over because he thinks he can transmit his thoughts through the money.
Yeah,
And when they
that's one
touch
of
that,
his. That's an interesting aspect of his obsession. That if he can physically harm people by handing things to them, like paying for something with money.
Mhm. That's why a contract was very hard for him to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
He claims to have lost 10 jobs to his OCD.
Right.
So I know during this time, before he leaves, he visits his sister. She gets really emotional and hopes that this therapy is able to help him.
Yeah.
So we get a cut to the compound. Apparently, Kevin has brought like an absurd amount of stuff with him. They find out that there's no TV or internet on it, and everyone is quite disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about the new arrival. And they mention that he looks like Aaron Eckhart.
Yeah.
And it gets really annoyed about how some people say Illinois instead of Illinois.
Yeah. I've never heard anyone say Illinois.
Me neither. Maybe a child like reading the word for the first time, but other than that,
Yeah.
I've not seen it.
Yeah.
We get Tracy, who's a young mother. She's 27, and she suffers from doing also repetitive rituals, trying to make sure that they're even numbers. So we have things like switching lights on and off and faucets on and off. One of her fears is that her son will get cancer, and it's something she worries about every day. And her rituals are to stop her son from getting cancer.
Yeah. And we find out that that was linked to not childhood trauma, but earlier trauma in her life too.
Yeah, we do find out that later. It's not super apparent earlier on, but yeah, we do find that out. Out of all the people, she drives the nicest car. She drives a Mazda Miata. She arrives, shakes everybody's hand, and immediately Kristen hand washes, goes to the sink after the handshake.
Yep.
And she also washes her feet in the sink.
Yeah.
So Dr. Tolan arrives, and he tells everybody that they will face their fears. He's expecting big results with big treatment, and that's all going to start in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So that is episode 1. It's basically just an introduction to the characters. I can't call them characters; they're real people.
Yeah.
But so their manifestation of OCD and whatnot. So episode 2, think it starts off with a quote, "Life is about to get weird." So in episode 2, we get to see their one-on-one sessions. The first one-on-one session is with Cody. He is obsessed with body perfection, which is why he makes his nose straight. And he thinks that his body will grow out of control. And repeating these rituals keeps his body in control. I guess he thinks he's going to turn into Tetsuo or some shit from Akira.
Yeah, giant body
Basically,
blob.
he is preventing himself from turning into Tetsuo, basically. I wonder, like, how triggering that movie would be for him if he had watched it. That would just, like, they should have played that for his Fear movie.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We're gonna show you this part in Akira right at the end when it gets the most blobby-ish. When Tetsuo turns into this giant blob monster that's combining with everything.
Right. So Jerry, Jerry is afraid of becoming a killer. I think he mentions there's this one instance when he watched a movie that's kind of like a scary movie about a killer, and he got a panic attack. Dr. Tolan tries to dig in a little bit deeper, and Jerry actually mentions that he was sexually molested and beaten
Right.
as a child. So I would say that's definitely some trauma that can cause psychological distress. I think, and that's what's interesting about these disorders, is that there's some triggering event that triggers it. And it depends on how they react to that event, whether this will manifest or not. And I'm wondering if there's like a genetic component too. I don't know if that's also possible as well.
I would bet. I don't know, but I would bet that there probably is. There's usually, I mean, in the nature and nurture debate, it's usually the answer to that question is usually both, but to varying percentages or proportions.
So yes, Jerry, he's like the gentle giant of the group, I would say.
Yeah.
Even though he's like obsessed with becoming a killer.
Yeah.
One of my favorite moments. I'm a psycho killer. I'm gonna kill you. we'll get to that later then.
And when he had when the doctor gets him to hold the butcher knife to his wrist.
So Kristen gets her one-on-one. She actually used to have a light flipping obsession. She's actually had OCD for a while. But this is interesting too because she had OCD before one of her more traumatic experiences. She mentions that at 13, she was sexually abused. And that's when she had the cleanliness obsession. And her fear comes from male bathroom habits. Dr. Tolan pushes her a little bit and it says it's because they handle their penis when they use the bathroom or to go pee. And she's afraid of like genital, like germ transmission, basically. So she has a lot of trouble with that. Okay, the one-on-one with Arini. We get more about the dad being killed in the accident. And her fear of blood contamination. I think she mentioned that when she was going to college, she noticed stains on her books when she bought used books, and then she would wear like surgical gloves while using her used books.
Yeah, I'm
That's
glad
how
I don't have
advanced.
that obsession. I buy tons of used books.
So she does have a cleanliness obsession, similar to Kristen, but she has like these two obsessions, but they're not as severe, I don't think, as some of the other folks. Um, so Tracy, um, she's she actually said that she's scared of what life would be like without OCD because she has a genuine belief that her rituals save people's lives. And she also thinks her family would die if she stopped her rituals. So she's not like the others who think what they're doing is like completely ridiculous and nonsensical and irrational. She
Yeah,
seems to genuinely like believe that her obsessions are keeping certain people alive and stopping them from dying.
yeah. She is more severe than the others in that way, like you mentioned.
Hmm. So now that we're done with the one-on-ones, they wake up the next morning. Kevin freaks out because he found a bug in the bed.
Yeah,
Kevin brings his bug to his one-on-one session, and his question if he wants to know if it's a bed bug. Dr. Tolan says that he is a psychologist, not an entomologist.
yeah.
He also mentions that he thinks Kevin will be the toughest one to treat, and he does have kind of a paranoid delusion that the bugs are being planted in his bed on purpose.
Yeah, kind of like how he was paranoid about people fucking with the front door earlier.
All right. So, um, yeah, it's like weird that his OCD problem is about at least fixing problems that aren't there. That's really weird.
Hmm.
Um, so they do have like a little group session, and we see Tomlin like rubbing his hands all over a pen and rubbing his face and mouth on the pen, trying to
Yeah.
demonstrate that there's nothing to be afraid of.
Hmm.
He mentions that words don't work on OCD, and people are noticing that Kristen's like really silent in the corner, and she says that she was literally wanting to cry about the pen that he was holding.
Wow.
um, so he gives them an activity to do, and their activity is he wants them to write out their worst fears and then record them into a voice recorder. Um, and after he
Right.
asks them to do that, I can feel basically the anxiety through the screen. They are
Yeah.
like totally not on board with doing it at
Yeah.
first. Um,
Yeah, and it wants to take the power away from what seem like these magic words that they can't utter. Otherwise, they'll have evil magic powers on other people.
right. Tracy, she starts crying. She's like, I want to call my son.
Hmm.
Um, so Dr. Tomlin actually tells her, it's meant to be a challenge, but not torture, so she gets exempt from this activity.
Hmm.
Um, which is interesting because he gets hard on people as they progress. I think since this was like the opening salvo here, he tried not to make it so harsh that they couldn't, continue on with the program.
Yeah. He does get hard on them sometimes for sure, but he never goes full like drill instructor yelling at them or something, and always makes it clear too. I can't force you to do anything, so if you don't want to, if you can't feel like you can't do this, then don't do it. But I think you really, I think you really can, and then that usually works.
Yeah. So the other five, they actually complete the task, and they go over their fears a bit. So this is where we learn about Cody, and he was being homeschooled. And basically, yeah, we all the previous fears that they say are the things that we've basically talked about. Um, After the group therapy, it seems that Kristen's obsessions like flare up almost to an out of control level. And we can see her obsessively cleaning her room and washing her hands and doing like her rituals. And it appears she doesn't get to sleep until 3 a.m. I believe they have cameras in all of their rooms.
Yeah, she's spending hours cleaning.
Right. So I think someone goes up to her room telling her that the group starts in like 20 minutes. And she says that that's only enough time for me to brush my teeth and wash my hands. I was like, wow, 20 minutes to wash your hands and brush your teeth. That seems crazy to me.
Yeah, I take a long time to do those things sometimes, but never that long.
Yeah, these are just two things. It's like, because I have a timer, like my toothbrush isn't one of those electronic ones. So it goes for 2 minutes, and once it's done, I don't stop completely. I just like, what did I miss? I get that, and then that might take an additional 30 seconds, and then I'm done.
Yeah, I usually do that too. Maybe like I don't know, maybe 3 minutes or so.
Hmm.
Maybe like a minute after the thing goes off.
So, and then washing hands, that's nothing that should take longer than a minute. Like they say 20 seconds is sufficient, and then it doesn't take that long to dry your hands if you have a nice dry towel.
Hmm.
So, yeah, 20 minutes, brush teeth and wash your hands. Tolan does say to her that he will not accommodate compulsions.
Hmm.
So he's giving them like hard limits as far as time goes on these things. So it looks like one of their first exposure therapies is that they're going on a shopping trip this morning.
Hmm.
Arini is tasked with driving.
And she is the one who has the driving obsession.
Hmm. Jerry is tasked with handling the cash.
And he's the one who has the obsession about handing things to people.
Hmm. It tells Kristen that she will be handling the produce, and Tracy, Kevin, and Cody um, are tasked with doing things the wrong way in the wrong amount of times, and trying not to be like obsessed with their evenness disorders.
Hmm. Yeah, and
Immediately,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Yeah,
Uh,
immediately Kristen starts crying and she doesn't think she can do it.
right.
And then we see some more hand washing. Um,
And I noticed too that is it Jerry who has the obsession about handing things to people?
yes.
Yeah, I noticed too that he has that obsession that I don't have, but I've seen people with OCD in movies and TV shows have, where if you're walking, as he's walking in the store, he doesn't want to step on the cracks in between the tiles.
Hmm. That's actually one that I've had. I wouldn't call myself OCD, but there was like a period of time where I could not step on like the cracks in sidewalks and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I would
Oh, okay.
consciously look at my feet and make sure I wasn't stepping on cracks.
Oh, wow. Okay. So how long did that last?
Uh, It was all throughout my childhood, at least.
Oh wow. Okay.
And there are like some repetitions that I do here at work because my job is repetitious. Um, One of the things I do is when I'm going down the stairs on the handrail, on every handrail, I touch, like while I'm holding the rail, I touch the tips of all of my fingers with my thumb 5 times, and then I have to move my hand because the handrail has this connection to the wall. 'Cause if I don't move my hand, I'll bump into that. And then I'll put my hand back down on the rail and I'll do the fingertip thing 5 times.
Hmm.
And yeah, but it's like I don't even think about it anymore. It's
That is
something I
that is
do.
that is like that is a weird obsession.
Yeah, but I don't get bothered if I don't do it though. Like I don't have
Yeah.
to like go back up the stairs and
Okay.
like do it if I didn't do it. It's like
Yeah.
something that's so habitual that I do it without even thinking about it. But if I
Okay.
don't do it, it doesn't bother me though.
Yeah, that's the difference between just people with obsessions or habits and people with full-blown OCD that they talk about in the show, which is that it's OCD if it's debilitating and you feel like you literally can't do it, and you like in your example, if you don't do that, you would go back up and make sure you do that habit on all of the sections of the handrail.
Mhm. So, Irene does actually a pretty decent job of driving to the store. She drives slow and she gets a little anxious, but she doesn't freak out too much. Immediately, Kristen is anxious that there is no wipes for the carts. Jerry is concerned, of course, about stepping on those tiles incorrectly, as you had mentioned earlier. For some reason, Kevin has bad thoughts about aisle 6. I think it has
Oh
something to do
yeah,
with
I forgot
666
that.
or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the things I thought that was interesting in being a reality TV watcher, I think, because there's a production team that's always with these people because there's a camera crew, right? So there
Right.
has to be a production team there. I suspect that the production team um, staged those items just like randomly lying on the floor. Because there were more than one instance where you just saw this item lying on the floor or like an item like mysteriously falling on the ground. That didn't
Yeah.
seem that seemed kind of weird. I had a feeling that like the camera crew or the production team like staged those instances.
Yeah, I wonder how how manipulative they would be allowed to be, because I mean, it seems it seems paranoid, like for example, with that guy when he was practically accusing people of putting bed bugs in his bug and accusing people of fucking with the front door to the house. But then
Mhm.
later on, they're like, as part of the exposure therapy, they're literally doing things to manipulate these people, but while telling them about it, like with I forget her name, the one who has the obsession around driving, um
Irene.
Irini. The doctor is doing things like pushing carts towards her while she's driving and pushing like a dead baby doll at it or at her car and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Mhm. And one of the things I noticed, Tracy, she gets really agitated about how the stuff is organized in the cart
Right.
and she starts like rearranging things. Um, Jerry literally says that he feels retarded
Yeah.
when he's hesitating when handling the money. He's like, "Oh, I feel retarded,"
Yeah.
and that's his quote. I'm just quoting what he says. I know that's a retired word now.
Let it be
But this,
known, Let it be known that the woke centrist, aka Dusty Cubes, aka Dustin Cubit, just offhandedly said the R word with no consideration for mentally disabled people. Jeez.
Yeah, I'm just saying what he said. This was an acceptable use of the word back in 2010.
Yeah.
So
I'm
on the
just
way
quoting a
back,
rap so I'm just quoting a rapper when I say the N-word, okay?
so on the way back, Irini does have a bit of trouble driving. She gets way more anxious than she did. And one of the reasons I think Jerry like made some type of sound and she thought it was her hitting like a pedestrian. So this kind of like messed her up like the whole way
Mm-hmm.
back.
Yeah.
All right. And day 3, this is not episode 3, this is day 3. Dr. Tonlin announces that there's going to be radical changes today. He says at 4:30, compulsions will stop.
Yeah. A little
So
dramatic, but yeah.
yeah, so he says no hand washing for 3 days.
Yeah, for the two people who have cleanliness obsessions. What Kristen and who's the other one?
Rini.
Arini. Oh, right. Yeah, she is that one too. Yeah.
No more repeating. So he says they all have to quit cold turkey.
Right.
Arini asks about what about the bathroom? You know, washing hands after you use the bathroom. And it's like, nope, no hand washing. He then says, he turns to Dr. Gilliam and says, may I have your shoe, please? What does he do, Andrew?
I know it's one of your favorite parts. I mean, he licks the shoe. He licks the bottom of the shoe.
Yeah, with like extreme gusto. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
and he has like this look in his eye, like
Like
after
a
he does it, like
like
it
a
was no
crazy
big
look.
deal.
Yeah.
Yes. And you get to see like everybody's like just completely disgusted and freaked out. Like
Yeah,
they look at him like he has just gone insane.
yeah.
And he says, we're not going to be normal, quote,
Yeah.
after he licks the bottom of Dr. Gillian's shoe. I wonder if like how much of that was staged. And when I say staged, I'm saying like, did he go up to Dr. Gillian and prepare her? Like say, hey, I'm gonna lick the bottom of your shoe, so could you wash it and make sure you don't walk into the bathroom or something like that?
Yeah, yeah, I wonder that too.
So I was like, But then again, I don't know because he goes through like the other later on he goes through the other exposures with them and he does like some other gross stuff.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So and then Kevin, after seeing the shoe lick, he's like, we have some problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he mentions that he has prepared fear movies for them, and he's going to equip them with heart rate monitors, just to take a look at their heart rate while they're watching these fear movies. So Cody's the first to watch this fear movie. Um, he actually cries during like the beginning of the movie about his OCD. And these are like 30-minute movies, so my guess is like they must be super repetitive.
Hmm.
Like, because how can you make a 30-minute movie based off of um, what they wrote? And it
Yeah.
looks like a lot of the footage is probably like footage that they submitted about themselves previously
Hmm.
before, being admitted. But we could see as time rolls on that Cody started becoming numb to the movie and his heart rate was dropping.
Hmm.
Um, and we could see that, yeah, eventually these these things start to they start to habituate to their fear movies. However, there was one that could not handle the fear movie, and that was Kevin.
Right.
His level did not drop during the movie, and he also had a panic attack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he had I think he vomited or something like that.
Yeah, I went to the bathroom and vomited and couldn't stop shaking and felt lightheaded and dizzy, I think.
Yeah, so they brought out like a EMT or something to help him. But then Tonlin reasserts that the rituals must stop. All right, episode 3. So this is when they start their exposure therapies. Dr. Tonlin, when talking to Tracy, because Tracy's the one who has like the super big cancer fear, he tells her that his son had cancer, and part of her exposure is that she's going to have to visit a cancer center. And
Right.
he's trying to basically display you're not the only one that had to deal with something like this. That is scary, but there's an appropriate way to react and behave.
Mm-hmm.
Chris, after being told about these exposure therapies and the complete cutoff of rituals, you see Kristen just like trying to wait it out, so to speak. And then they review her footage and they tell her that she used a paper towel to remove a bottle cap, which was against the rules there.
Mm-hmm.
They talk to Kevin, and he says that 2 of his taboo words are 666 and screw America, which are pretty strange.
I forgot about the Screw America one. Yeah, that's funny.
Cody talks about that he fears becoming evil one day. So one of their exposures, and this is Cody and Kevin, to get tattoos.
Temporary ones, I think.
Yeah, temporary henna tattoos. I think, yeah, Tracy gets really upset about them having to do that.
Yeah.
Irini, well, let's get into Irini because her exposure is going to be in the parking lot. And we see that Tonlin brings out a stroller and some dummies and stuff. So her first exposure is to run over a dummy.
Right.
And as she approaches the dummy, she stops. She just can't do it. But then she gathers herself and she runs over the dummy. And she mentions that she mentions that it makes no sense that she's so fearful of running over this dummy. But after having done it, it seems like it wasn't as big a deal as it should have been.
Mm-hmm.
But when she stopped at the dummy first, like she was crying.
Yeah.
But she got through it. So they up the ante. They throw like a stroller out the car. That one freaks her out pretty good. Conlon asks what her level is, and she says it's 75. One of the things you're going to hear throughout the show is, what's your level?
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time I watched the show, I would use what's your level to like gauge my wife's, like, if something,
Level
like
of
if she had like a
anxiety.
anxiety or a headache, or if she like hit her arm, I was like, oh, what's your level?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And she would tell me, or if she had pain, like if she had Usually it all revolves around pain.
Okay.
So um, Tomlin starts throwing baby dolls at the car, and it's like, "Oh my God, she's killing a baby!" And she actually does pretty well at this point. So she does pretty well by the end of this exposure. Cody. So going back to Cody, he gets a tattoo that says 666.
Yeah.
Kevin gets a tattoo saying people will die. Irene observes this exposure, and Jerry does, and they're like, "Hey, let's participate." And Irene gets, "I have HIV," and Jerry gets locked up. When
Right.
they try to get Tracy to join in, she says nope, and it like really angers her.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, Tonlin sees that Irene, like Tracy, isn't doing what she needs to do, and he actually gives her an ultimatum. Says if she doesn't participate in the exposures, then she would have to leave the treatment facility.
Mm-hmm.
I think after she heard that, she kind of started getting into it. They get her in a one-on-one session while they go into another exposure at Skid Row.
Yeah.
This is probably one of your favorite exposures.
Yeah. Yeah.
Corey is given bum clothing, and
Yeah.
he has to wear this bum clothing at Skid Row because he is afraid that he will turn into a bum simply by wearing this bum style clothing.
Right.
Irene also, she expresses fear over having to go to Skid Row as well. We see Corey walking around with his dirty yellow long sleeve shirt. He says, "I look like one of them." And then he expresses um, reluctance, and he's like, "Oh, I shouldn't talk to them about them like that." He's completely aware of like they're in a bad situation, and it's not like they're different from anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
They just have fallen on hard times, et cetera, et cetera. He tries to
Yeah.
come to that realization.
I wonder
Uh,
if they don't really get. I don't think they really address this consciously, but I wonder if part of the reason they went to Roe versus Wade was to expose that, some people don't have a choice and have to live in these conditions that you think that you wouldn't be able to survive because of your OCD.
mhm. So, during the exposure, Irene is approached by a homeless person who has HIV. So it's like an extreme trigger for her. So their mission for today is to hand out meal coupons, and Irene must shake hands with the homeless people and touch some puddles. Irene actually did a pretty good job with the handshaking, but the puddle job, that was difficult for
I
her.
like that even more than when the doctor licked the shoe.
You like the puddle?
Yeah.
So before we get to the puddle, they go back to some of the other patients here. Um, Cody praises Irene for being brave. Um, he also mentions he doesn't want people to be afraid of him like the way he is afraid of them.
Hmm.
Jerry passes out the coupons, and his job is to not ask for them back because
Hmm.
of his transmission of evil thoughts through objects
Right.
obsession. Kristen straight up says she thinks that handshakes are disgusting. And when they go out, we see that she's handing the tickets over, but not shaking the hands.
Mm-hmm.
I think Tomlin says that she needs to drop the princess act, and then
Yeah.
she shook a hand. So going back to Irini, Tomlin demonstrates what he wants her to do, so he puts his hand in the puddle. He rubs his hands together, touches his hair, his face, and he tells Irini that he has to do a particular thing. Do you remember what he called it?
I forget what he called it.
He tells her that she has to do the OCD Macarena.
Oh, right.
It's basically like the Macarena dance, except you rub your hands in some nasty ass puddle water and you
Yeah.
perform
Rub it
like
in your
some
hair and
touching.
on your face and in your hands.
Yeah, so she performs that, and he asks what her level is. It's 90.
Yeah.
And then after a little while, he asks again, and she says 85. And then he says, "Oh, you're habituating."
Yeah.
So we get a cut back to the compound where Tracy is at to work on her exposure therapy. And she basically writes cancer on, I think, a piece of paper. And then she just starts break down and cries. So we
Mhm.
find out that at this moment that in 2003, her fiance had died of cancer. So this is probably where
Yeah.
she got this trigger from, the
Yeah,
death of her fiance.
that's the trauma that led to her OCD obsession.
Yeah, so her obsession is that she couldn't save. She felt helpless, that she couldn't do anything for him.
Mhm.
So this is why she has an obsession with performing rituals to save people from cancer.
Yeah.
Okay, so they all returned back to the house, and it is shower time. Arini does a good job with the 5-minute shower. And then Kristen was just like crying and complaining. And she went over 3 minutes past the 5. And because of that, Tonlin explains that they were going to install shutoff valves on the shower heads. Kristen complains and wants to go home.
Yeah.
Episode 4, day 6. Um, so there's this one new doctor, Elizabeth Moore. I thought she was pretty good looking.
Mhm.
She's young and she has a surprise. So she brings in a bunch of like the OCD people's families.
Mhm.
Um, for some reason, I wrote a note that said "Evil Dr. Tolan." I don't remember why. So Jerry's sister comes, Cody's mother, Kristen's brother, Tracy's mom and son, Irini's mom, and Kevin's dad. And then they have kind of like these one-on-one sessions with their family members. Um, one of the things we see is that Irini and her mom do not get along. Um, right off the bat, we see Kristen's brother trolls her, and his troll is like laying on her bed with like his shoes and stuff, and she gets freaked out about that.
You think that was him trolling? I thought maybe he just didn't even realize it.
It seemed like he was doing it on purpose, I thought.
Okay.
I thought he was doing it on purpose. I thought it was a calculated move. It seemed like it was a calculated move to me.
Okay.
So this time we learned that Irini's mom is also a piece of work. I'm thinking that Irini's mom has probably some psychological trauma as well, but that didn't manifest as OCD.
Yeah, it kind of seems like it might be that way.
Tracy's mom tells Tracy that you have to enjoy life while we're here. We can't obsess with being worried about death and dying.
Yeah.
Jerry actually didn't know about his fear of becoming a violence person. So this was a complete new thing.
Oh,
She
you mean
knew about like the
his sister didn't know that, right?
yeah, the sister did not know. Kristen basically shuts down. And then Kevin, it is asserted by Dr. Tolan that he has a hard time reading social cues.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is that Kevin's dad is like completely oblivious to the.
Yeah. He thinks he seems normal.
But then there are a couple things that his dad says that he noticed about his son is that he doesn't get to the point when asked the question. And I noticed this too. Like someone will ask a question. He's like, "Oh, do you want the long version or the short version?" And even the short version is like not getting to the point.
Yeah,
This
that's
is
true.
when Olin asserts that Kevin might have some form of Asperger's, which is
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's on the autism spectrum, like a high functioning, a high functioning version of autism.
Right. Is Asperger's the one where you're socially awkward and you get like uncomfortable with some people to the point of violence if they touch you?
Um, I think Asperger's definitely have trouble reading social cues. Um, I think I might have it, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Like, I probably need to take a test or something.
Really?
But probably, like, I don't have I'm not very good at reading social cues
Hmm.
at all. One of the things too is like sometimes I have a lot of hard time detecting sarcasm.
Oh, really?
When it's directed at me, I have a hard time detecting
Oh,
it.
okay. I've never noticed that you miss sarcasm whenever I say something sarcastic, but I'm not sure if I've directed it at you that often.
No, I don't know. It's usually when people say something to me directly in a sarcastic way, and I'll take it literally. Like I won't be able to detect it.
Hmm.
That's not
Okay.
all the time, but it does happen with me.
Hmm.
Um,
You noticed that I was being
but
sarcastic earlier, like implying that you were a bad person for saying retard, right?
oh no, I didn't. That was I totally got that. Oh,
Okay.
that didn't go over my head.
It seemed like you got that. I would have felt really bad if I felt like you hadn't gotten it.
Yeah. So anyway, yes, Kevin. So this also questions Tolan. He's like, I think I'm gonna have even harder time treating this guy. One thing that Tolan mentions is he wants to expose the whole family to exposure therapy. So the first one that we get is the knife.
Right.
So Tolly gives Jerry a knife, and his sister immediately starts crying. And he says he's going to raise the bar, and he tells Jerry to say, "I'm a psycho killer, and I'm going to kill you."
Right.
And he says it in a really matter-of-fact way. "I'm a psycho killer, I'm going to kill you." And you
Hmm.
kind of get your tense music playing, people eyeballing each other. The tension in the room is just 211. Tracy's exposure as her son is in another room, and he's hooked up to a heart rate monitor. And he instructs Tracy that he wants her to stop his heart with her thoughts.
Right.
And she immediately freaks out. He asks her level, and it's 85.
Right.
And obviously, we see that her thoughts have no effect on his heart. And I wanted to ask you about this. If you thought this was staged, like a stage exposure. Kristen freaks out when her laundry is moved. Did you see that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you
Like,
think that was like part of the exposure therapy? Because
well, who
Dr.
was,
Elizabeth Moore was the one that helped her with that.
okay. Was it, I don't remember, was it her family who were still there at the time who moved it?
Her brother was still there. Yeah.
Or he was the one who moved it?
No, nobody knew, and nobody admitted to moving it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. That's good. That's a good question, because I mean, I would think that if it had been her brother who did that, it would be more likely to be staged, because he would be more likely to be aware of that. But yeah, I don't know. Did it seem staged to you?
Well, she's the only one that didn't have a family exposure, so to me, it kind of seems like it was staged.
Oh yeah, I didn't notice that. Yeah, I guess that would make more sense for that reason. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Or maybe they had one planned out but decided not to do it after this coincidentally happened. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be a good reason too. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so she says she's going to throw up because she thinks that the clothes are contaminated. They're just simply moved.
Right.
She does eventually get the clothes put away after a lot of coaxing. And I have in a star in my notes. Do you think the producers moved the laundry? I kind of think it was staged, in my opinion.
Okay.
So one for Kevin's exposure, we have his dad in another room on a heart monitor, and Kevin is asked to stop his dad's heart with a hex.
Right.
I think
Yeah,
he says the
this
hex like
is
105 times or something like that.
yeah, this part's intense. Like he says that, and then he comes up with these profound multiple levels of rationalizations for, you know, the thought that he expresses that, well, maybe if I say it like 100 more times, it would happen. You don't know the exact number until you reach the exact number.
Yeah, so he tries to rationalize why it didn't work.
Hmm.
So basically, his exposure therapy at this point is not working.
Yeah.
I think this is my favorite exposure therapy. Irene goes to get some, they go to like a coffee shop or something. Oh man. So they go to a coffee shop and then they order some tea and scones. And Dr. Moore,
Oh yeah.
I don't know, I think she's hot, Dr. Moore.
Yeah.
I like her look to her. She's like super confident. And
Yeah.
it's funny because she participates in this too.
Yeah,
So,
like I wouldn't want to participate in that either, or do the lick or lick someone's shoe.
yeah, it's basically just as bad as the shoe lick here.
Yeah,
So it's so hilarious. Yeah, I was laughing. I'm sorry.
yeah,
This exposure was funny to me. But anyway, they go. They're all having a nice session. They order their food, and they're like, "Oh, why don't we ratchet it up a bit? Let's take our stuff to the bathroom.
yeah,
We have to contaminate these things." I was like, "Oh shit, what are they gonna do?"
yeah,
So basically, we got toilet scones going on.
yep,
They wiped it all over the toilet, and in one instance, it said that they wiped it on some dry pee.
yeah. That's gross.
Oh man, it's so freaking
Especially that part.
disgusting.
Like, why would you do that part? I mean, even rubbing it on the toilet is bad enough. But and then they put it in the toilet seat at one point too. Like, oh
Yeah,
my
the
god.
mom gets really into like
Yeah,
rubbing the
yeah,
scones in the nastier areas of the toilet.
yeah, yeah,
So they take their toilet scones and they go back into the dining room and then they start putting jelly on their toilet scones.
yep,
And they're like, how about we up the ante? Let's go back and eat these in the bathroom.
yeah.
So they like place the scones on like the toilet seat, and one of the scones falls in the toilet bowl.
Yeah, and they
And
still eat it.
Dr. Moore picks it up and eats it. I was
Oh,
like, oh my god, it's so friggin'
gross.
nasty.
Yeah.
And then the mom like enthusiastically dips her scone into the
Yeah.
toilet bowl and eats it. And she
Oh,
says, I'll do anything for you as she's like eating this like she dips it into the water.
yeah, yeah.
And she's
It's a
like really
fucking
rubbing it in there.
yeah. That's a fucking devoted mother.
Yeah, so Irene eventually does do the same, and she eats the toilet scone. We weren't
Yep.
asked her level, so we don't know what her level was at during this exposure. So we get back to the house, and Kristen is still anxious about these 5-minute showers. And Tolan basically gives her another ultimatum. Basically about her tantrums mostly, because she always is fussing and throws a tantrum when she can't get away with doing her obsessions.
Mm-hmm.
So she says she wants to go home, and then she immediately starts doing the hand washing deal, just breaking the rule that she can't wash her hands. So she
Yep.
calls her brother crying on the phone, asking him to pick her up, basically acting like a child. The brother does refuse to pick her up, and he talks. Theo is the name of the brother. He talks her back into reason, basically saying that if you do not complete this, you are not going to get better. Like I'm like trying to think, about having to do something hard when you're afraid of it. Like
Mm-hmm.
overcoming a fear isn't easy,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
if you ever like had to do something like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, even like getting over a few of my own obsessions is probably similar, I would say. Although it seems like Kristen has more severe OCD than I do.
Yeah, hers is like really severe. Severe enough that these exposures are a really big deal for her.
Yeah.
Seems like a bigger deal than most of the others. The weird thing about Kevin is like, yeah, some parts are a big deal, but then he doesn't think that they actually work.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
the results
exactly.
of the exposure doesn't actually affect like his brain. Say that like his rituals aren't working.
Yeah.
So Theo talks her back to reason. And we get that's kind of like the ending of the episode, and then there's like a little bonus scene that we get at the end of the episode. And in the bonus scene, when they're doing the contamination at the restaurant table, I think Irina asks, "So how are we going to contaminate the food?" And the Dr. Moore takes her cup of tea and spits in it. And gives it to her.
I forgot about that part. I probably saw that because I watched until the end of every episode, but I didn't remember that.
Yeah, some of the bonus scenes were like okay, but this one I actually notated it because that whole restaurant scene was amazing.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the more memorable scenes that I remember from the show.
Like
Toilet.
to me that and their trip to Skid Row are the most
Yeah,
memorable ones for me.
yeah, I definitely remember. And I'm having a tough time remembering like what happens in the last four because I think in these last four episodes, either the treatment is not working and they don't complete the program, or like they're not reacting in crazy ways to the exposures anymore.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, I haven't watched those ones yet, so I've been waiting
Yeah,
until
me
we
neither.
do our episodes on that, so that'll be interesting, I'm sure.
Yes. So, as a sufferer of OCD, what do you think about his choice of therapy to get these patients to deal with their obsession?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, the exposure therapy. I mean, it reminded me of how we heard about from Jonathan Haidt in his book, The Coddling of the American Mind, where he's talking about peanut allergies, and often people can cure their peanut allergies by just gradually exposing themselves to more and more peanut butter, and that's a sort of therapy that's often used for sort of things like these. And it made me think about possibly trying to do that sort of thing myself with some of my obsessions too, because it seems like a great idea to do exactly the thing that you're afraid of doing.
Yeah, because I know for the exposures is when you confront with fear.
Hmm.
So, and that would have to be based off of like the fear-based OCD triggers, you know? So I don't know. It seems like everybody in this house has a fear-based OCD trigger.
Hmm.
So are your triggers like fear-based? Like you're doing it kind of, is yours more like Cody? Like a fear of becoming uneven or something like that?
I don't know. I feel like I'm less conscious about the reasons behind them, maybe. I'm just like more conscious that my obsessions and habits are fucking irrational and stupid when I'm doing them. I'm not sure if I would say mine are really that fear-based, like if I'm worried about getting uneven or something, it's not even like I'm afraid that it'll happen. It's just that I think that it'll happen and I don't want it to happen. So I mean, I guess you could say you're afraid of it, but uh it's more just like just
Is it more
irrational
like
habits.
using a probability based thing? Like, I'll probably not happen if I do this?
Yeah, probably something more like that, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, instead of definitely. Because I think a lot of these people more have a definitely than probably, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
I think
and
that's
so,
I think since I started taking medication for it a few years ago, that's helped with it. Like all the things I do a lot of things that help with it, like my medication and weed and meditation and that sort of things, and those sort of things. They help it so that I can actually confront a particular habit sometimes if it's becoming too debilitating. I never used to be able to do that before.
Okay. Yeah, what I need to do is figure out which Dave Sedaris book talks about his OCD and have you laugh about it. It's super hilarious.
Yeah, he's a good author. I've read some of his books.
Yeah, they're like humorous accounts of his own life. I don't know how much of it is exaggerated or not, because some of the stuff he does is just weird. It's like, why? Some of the things just seem super strange, the things that he does, that
Yeah,
he goes out of his way to do. But
yeah.
yeah, he had OCD, and he said that he cured it by smoking weed
It does
in
help.
college.
Like I think I maybe mentioned to you last week or something that, you know, if I'm baked, I'm much more likely to be able to notice when I'm doing some weird nonsensical OCD habit and just go, why the fuck am I doing that? I'm just gonna not do that. That's stupid.
Well, I think it's because when you're baked, you tend to think outside the box more.
Yeah, yeah,
And
for
your
sure.
thoughts you just think about weird things that are, like I said, outside of the box, like stuff that you wouldn't routinely think about. You
Certainly,
would just
yeah.
stop and think about something. Like, almost seems like comedians almost have to smoke weed because that's when you start questioning weird shit.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's one of the great
Um,
things about a lot of comedy, because they're pointing out how, well, like especially some observational comedy, they're pointing out how ludicrous some normal human behavior thing is, or just some normal thing. I always remember too this joke on Joe Rogan's last special. He's just, all he's doing is pointing out the difference between cats and dogs and the way they interact with humans. And he does this thing where he's basically doing an impression of his cat when he gets home from somewhere, and it'll just glare at him as if to say, what the fuck's your problem? And then no, it's if they do something wrong. If his cat knocks something off the table with its tail, and he says something about it, it'll just glare at him as if it's somehow his fault, and think like, the fuck's your problem, dude? And then if his dog does something wrong and he starts scolding his dog, the dog will go, oh no, I'm so sorry, can I do anything to help? I'll never do it again, I love you. Like, that's so true with my dog and my cat. It's just like that.
um, yeah, it's definitely, for the few times that I've done it, it makes you think of weird shit
Yeah.
that you didn't think of before, like really outside of the box type of thinking.
Hmm. Yeah, it really can help with creativity in that way. That's why you know, like, well, that's one of the reasons I like to smoke weed when I'm doing podcasts or before I do a solo video, because it helps me express my ideas more creatively.
Mhm. So, do you have any predictions? Who's going to make it? Who isn't?
I would say it seems to me like everyone other than Kristen and Aaron Eckhart guy seem to be doing an okay job and have a chance of making it.
So you think everybody else is going to be able to complete the program?
That seems likely, yeah. What do
Mhm.
you think?
Well, I can't say because I already know.
Oh, right, yeah.
I've seen this. I don't. I remember like very few things about it, but I do remember who gets kicked off and all that.
Okay.
And yeah, I remembered Skid Row and I remembered the toilet scones.
I think I'll pass on those.
I also remembered the parking lot of getting like dolls and shit thrown at
Oh,
the
yeah,
car.
yeah. Yeah, those
Yeah, 'cause I
the
think,
exposure therapy itself is the best part of the show.
oh yeah, them having to confront their fears and the ridiculous things they have to do in order to confront them.
Hmm.
Um, like, could you imagine if Kristen had to do the toilet scones?
Yeah, that'd be cruel. Oh man.
It's like torture for her.
Yeah.
Oh man. I think for her exposure therapy, she'd have to be forced to like touch a man's penis or something.
Yeah.
Because
Oh
that's
yeah,
basically.
there's that part where she was talking to the doctor about, I think it was about why one of the reasons that she doesn't like sharing a bathroom is because she thinks men are gross, and he's like basically kind of leading her on to try to get to the real reason why she's upset about that, and it's because penises are gross.
Well, that, and she said she was sexually abused.
Yeah, well
And
that's
that
one
was
of
like
the
the trauma.
yeah,
All the
well
trauma.
that makes sense given that, right?
Yeah, because we had two sexual abuse victims. It was Jerry and her.
Mm-hmm.
So both her and Jerry had that past trauma in their lives regarding sexual abuse. It manifested in different ways. Well, they both have OCD, but their OCDs are like completely different from each other,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah. So are you enjoying this program so far?
Yeah, certainly. It's very educational, and um, it helps me think about my own OCD too, because I can compare the similarities and differences between my obsessions and those of people on the show, and how with a lot of them it seems like they have even more severe OCD than I do.
Hmm. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I was like,
Yeah,
Um,
I
and
like it
there's,
because it it shows you how much people can suffer from OCD, because I think that people don't have it, probably don't have any sort of window into the degree of anxiety that it can cause.
mhm. We also see that there's a bright light at the end of the tunnel as well.
Yeah.
For at
Hmm.
least for certain manifestations of it
Yeah, for sure.
and certain severity. And it's hard. It seems like the more severe it is, the harder it is for it to be broken, of course.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
case of Kristen, she's really having a hard time. And I know Tracy, she also seems to have it pretty bad as well.
Yeah, it seems like she's making more progress than Kristen, though.
Yeah, because we saw that she was like not participating in a lot of the activities. And after getting that ultimatum, she started like participating.
Hmm.
So we'll see how this ends. So then the next time we talk, or at least on my channel, we might have a small segment about the show, the Game of Thrones show, and then we'll continue to talk about the rest of the OCD project. So
Sure.
OCD projects, we have 4 more episodes to go, and then we'll see the conclusion. Too bad that this is like a little hidden gem. You probably would not hear anybody talk about this show
Yeah, I
at
wouldn't have heard
all.
about it if I hadn't heard about it from you.
Yeah, because I was trying to find out what the buzz was about this show, and it's like nobody's heard of it. Like I found that at least Wikipedia knows what it is, and IMDb knows what it is, but yeah, it's hard to see anybody's opinions on it.
Hmm.
But yeah, so did you have any plugs, man? Because we're gonna skip the would you read and watch, because
Right.
literally people are gonna start showing up here and within an
Okay. Yeah, people should check out my channel, Mindgasms. My last one that I'm very happy was really popular. Um, because it's a deep dive nerd chat into philosophy, and one of my book series that I'm doing on the Slovenian / Hegelian / Marxist philosopher Slavoj Žižek's book called Less Than Nothing, in which he's talking about Hegel and truth, and it's a very, very interesting discussion of that. And he talks about relativism in terms of Hitler and the Nazis and stuff like that, and gets into some really controversial subjects, as Slavoj Žižek is prone to do. And yeah, check out. Hopefully, next week we'll be talking about that documentary that we've been meaning to talk about, called Reversing Roe, which is about the decades-long process of evangelical Christian groups like the Moral Majority pressuring Republicans to gradually do legislation that eventually led to Roe versus Wade being overturned in the U.S. recently. We'll either do that one, or we said we could do the first episode or two of House of the Dragon on either your channel or mine next week, or maybe we'll have another one as a backup too, in case I'm ready too late for Chris again. We were talking about perhaps discussing the Quran, so, and we've got a few other options too. So yeah, check out all that stuff on Mindgasms.
All right, great. Well, thank you for joining us here today and talking about the OCD project. And of course, check out Andrew's videos. They are quite entertaining these days. I think one of my favorites, one is him analyzing a conversation between Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson. Really enjoyed that one. I like
You mean Ben Shapiro and Sam Harris? That one?
Oh, Sam Harris. My bad. Yeah, that what I
Yeah.
confused Peterson and Harris.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
And
thanks.
your videos about critical theories. I love all of those critiques and those deep dives on that book as well.
Thanks. Yeah.
But yeah, watch this stuff. It's really good. I think it's getting super good and better with every single video he makes. And
thanks.
I'll try and get to my stuff. I often don't get to it in time. I was going to do a Salman Rushdie video about that event that happened, but it's kind of old news by this time. So I'm probably just going to wrap that up into whenever we start to talk about the satanic verses, which
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
currently reading.
You said we were gonna do that. Yeah. Are you listening to it as an audiobook?
I am. I'm listening to it as an audiobook. And after I listen to each chapter, I read like a chapter summary to make sure I've
Okay.
like understood like the main points of that chapter.
Could you send me the
Because
audiobook too?
it should be in my database somewhere. So,
Oh, okay.
and yeah, one of those links that I've sent you, you can click on it and yeah, it should be uploaded.
In the audiobook file?
Yeah, it should be there somewhere, I hope, because I've
Oh,
been
okay.
uploading everything. And that was one of my more recent uploads. So I think it should be like in the last folder or the folder before it.
Okay. Maybe I'll check the folder before the last one, because I was downloading an audiobook from the newer one earlier, and I don't think it was there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I
And
try to upload at least once a month to get whatever I got and throw it up there.
sweet.
But yeah, if you can't find it, let me know, and I'll check my folders to see which folder it's in, and I'll shoot you the link.
All right, cool.
All right, so yep, so that's what you can expect from me in the future. Expect another episode about the OCD project. Expect a discussion about Salman Rushdie's book, and I am still currently working on The Wheel of Time. I know book 10, the book that we're currently on, is considered one of the worst books in the series, from what I've heard.
Is that what you're finding in your reread of it so far?
This is the opinion of others. So I had forgotten to listen to the legendariums for book 9 and 8 and 9. And one of the persons that has read them all warned Craig that book 10 was the worst of them.
The worst of the slog.
Yeah, the worst of the slog is in book 10, and then he says that 11 really turns it around and
Okay.
makes it
Yeah,
good again.
people say the slog is somewhere around book 7 to 10, right?
Right.
Right.
One of the explanations I heard is why it's a slog is because really the story arc should be a single book, but he had to split it up into 3 or 4.
Hmm.
So that's why we have like a lot of unsatisfying endings to many
Right.
of the books.
Yeah. Well, I guess in so far in as we've been talking about in our chats about it so far, for me in my rereads of the book, they haven't really been as much of a slog as I remembered them to be, especially uh I guess like maybe book they get like progressively slightly more boring, although the end of the last one was really good.
Yeah, the Winter's Heart does have a good ending, but I heard 10 is the sloggiest.
Okay.
So I don't quite remember what happens in 10. It's been a while since I've read these books. But I'm getting back into it, and God, the prologue to this book is ridiculously big. And then it has only 30 chapters, which means the chapters are longer
Okay.
because the book is still like nearly 900 pages. So, yes, I am getting through it. I just need to read more and focus on it instead of other books that I've been listening to and reading.
And also sometime soon, if you want to, you said we could try going through another one or two maybe of those sort of truth books.
Yeah, I still have some of those on my back burner as well. So that's another thing that we can work on because I know the last book was, I think we deemed it as like second to worst.
Yeah, but there's a
But
huge difference in quality between that one and the last one, right?
yeah, the worst one is just super boring.
Yeah.
I did not like that one, and it was this one was much more interesting. And
You
it's
read
weird because there
the
was a huge departure. Like they focused on these characters that they had not introduced before in the series, and there was a
Mhm.
stunningly long, big chunk about this town and these
Yeah.
characters that I did not expect. It wasn't
Yeah.
as bad as
Mhm.
I thought it could be. He's definitely getting better as a writer, but it's not as good as some of his earlier books.
That was the fourth one that we read, right?
We read the fifth one, I think.
It was the fifth one? Okay. Because
Yeah,
I
because we
think
read the
I th-
first, the second book is really good, the third book is bad.
okay, that's what I thought that's what the order in my memory was that the second was better than the first and the third was terrible, and the fourth and fifth were better, but there's a huge difference in quality between 4 and 3, even though 4 and 5 are not as good as 2.
Yeah,
Does
because
that
if you
sound right?
remember, four was about when his like brother came and he had to like, you remember that one when
Yeah,
his brother
yeah,
showed up and it was
yeah.
like the plague and they had to deal with that magical plague and all that other shit. That was book four. Book five is the town and that kind of caste system in that society. And
Oh,
then kind of like,
okay. I forgot. I had remembered the stuff with his brother and the stuff with that town as being in the same book, so I combined stuff from book 4 and put it into book 5 there in my mind.
Yeah, so Temple of the Winds is book 4, and Soul of the Fire was the one that we last read, and the next one is Faith of the Fallen, which I heard is pretty decent. I heard Faith of the Fallen is one of the better books out of the first 6.
Well, who knows? Maybe we'll end up reading the whole series, but probably only once. Don't think it will be a series I reread.
No, I would never reread this. It's not worth being reread
Yeah,
at all.
yeah, I agree.
It's the writing isn't good enough for that.
Yeah,
It's not at all good enough.
definitely.
So, all right. So I guess we'll sign off for tonight. Thank you everybody for watching, and check us out next week when we talk about the OCD project, the last half of the series, and I hope you're there. If you have anything to say about OCD project, which you probably don't because nobody has fucking seen the show ever, but if you have, please shoot a line in the comments section. I'd love to see what you think about this series, this documentary, the series, or reality show, whatever you want to call it.
Or
And yeah,
OCD in general.
or OCD in general. If you have it, let us know what your obsessions are. And I highly recommend watching this show if you do suffer from this disorder. And if
Mhm.
you ever want to find it, I don't know if I'm even allowed to link this here, but it's on Vimeo.
Yeah,
You can just you can do a Google search for OCD project, and you'll find links to watch it on Vimeo. That's where I watched it. And Vimeo's a legit site, but I don't know if I can just link that
yeah.
in a YouTube comment. I'm not sure. I've never
Vimeo's
seen
kind
it
of
done
like
before.
Vimeo's kind of like YouTube, but yeah, if people want to watch it, they can watch it there.
Yeah, it's kind of like a YouTube that doesn't care that much about copyright stuff. Yeah, you can find stuff on there that's obviously copyrighted, but that's why I'm not going to post any links. But you can definitely find it on Vimeo. It wasn't hard for me to do a search on it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for watching, and everybody have a great night.
Adios till next time, everyone.
All right. See ya.